Okay. I do not see Commissioner Pinckney present. We have quorum, so we'll go ahead and begin. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
Excellent. Is there a second? Any objections? Perfect. I apologize. I do have an amendment before we move to adopt the agenda. I apologize. This is late breaking. But on the action agenda, we had BZA case 21080. I've heard from the applicant that they have postponed their hearing, so I move to remove that from the agenda.
Okay. Which BZA case is this?
BZA case 21080. I know that there have been a couple times where it's been incorrectly typed, but I believe it's 21080. This is regarding 2017 rear 2nd Street Northeast. Is there any second? Any objections? Great. So we will remove that from the agenda. Any other amendments to the agenda before we move to approve? Great. So we'll move to approve the agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Any objections? With none heard, the agenda has been approved. First order of business after that is the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Galvin.
Right. Good evening, everyone. I drafted and distributed the copies of the draft minutes on February, for the February 20th meeting about around maybe a week later, and I think it was a Sunday. And then after that, I actually posted it only last weekend, but I reviewed it again last night in detail and made some minor changes to it. Are there any other requests or changes to the meeting minutes? If not, I motion to approve the meeting minutes as they are currently posted on the website.
I second that motion.
Any objections? With none noted, the meeting minutes have been approved. Great. So the next item on the agenda is officer reports and commissioner announcements. Just again, like last meeting, combine these together. I'll start with the officers and move to other commissioners as well. Would any officers like to make a report?
Sure, I can do a treasurer's report. Our bank account balance stands at $31,854.52. There were only two checks that were come through. One is the $50 for the ANC security fund, and then there was $16.06 domain renewal. And that is all of the expenses that we have outstanding or passed. So that is our bank account balance as it stands. The other thing I would want to report about personally is that there is the Washington Teachers Union still trying to make progress as they are negotiating for a new contract. This time they were not asked to come in at 5 a.m. for the last negotiating meeting, which I think was progress. The school commissioner was there. They did not come out reporting that they had had a very effective negotiating session. And they, the Washington Teachers Union seems to be saying that the other side is still not, in their words, negotiating very fairly. But I'm not there. I will say that I am hoping for progress, and that we will keep everyone posted and hope that there is a teacher contract shortly.
Fantastic. Great.
Quick question. Can you, there was the $50 for the ANC security fund. What was the other number?
A domain renewal.
Okay.
That we approved at the last.
And what was the amount again? Sorry.
$16.06.
Thank you very much. That's all I need.
I think there was also a marginal expenditure that's oncoming about renewing our mailbox.
Yes.
Which I think we were set to discuss, and we have the funding for it. I think we can pull from one of the pre-allocated budget line items. And I think the other thing that we had discussed was a Zoom account, but the great news is that the Office of ANC is working on an enterprise account, so we'll hold on that, and hopefully that'll save on expenditures across the ANCs.
The PO box, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I've done that expenditure. I just need to submit it. I haven't submitted it to the treasurer yet. Next
Great.
time I see you in person, Mr. Treasurer, I'll give it to you, but that was $200 for the year.
Great,
Thank you.
excellent. Amazing. Would any other officer like to give a report?
Yes. In my capacity as secretary, I'm fortunately, I have some good news coming in my own life, but unfortunately, it's taking away some additional time that I have. So I want to give kind of a month's heads up that at least in my full capacity as secretary, I may be stepping down next month temporarily until I kind of get some new footing and new routine, probably into in the middle of the summer. So I will formally submit that. I'm hopeful that someone else can assist, either formally or informally, as per vote, to just help out with the meeting minutes and posting to the website while I'll still be here. I just will have less time. So.
Share what your good news is.
What's your, yeah.
My wife's expecting, so that'll be happening very shortly. So, thank you.
Great. Well, I'm saddened to hear you stepping away temporarily, but very excited for your personal news.
Thank you.
Would any other officers like to give a report? Right. Great. Moving on to the other commissioners. Would any commissioners like to give a report or announcement?
I did speak, and we're going to talk to this. I think it's an ongoing thing. Today, I spoke at the Transportation and Environment Committee's hearing on the Environmental Justice Amendment Act, as well as some local, other local laws around tree preservation and greenland preservation. And it came out really well. There was a decent amount of Ward 5 representation there, which I think Councilmember Parker is the proponent, the lead sponsor of this bill, and some of the concerns expressed that that act would help address around environmental pollution, traffic violence, roadway safety, they're all kind of rolled up into this larger scale issue on tackling systemic issues of environmental injustice in Ward 5, Ward 7, Ward 8, Wards 4 even. And so it was a good first step, I think, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. And Commissioner Galvan was there as well, representing us as we deal with some other odor-ish things.
Yeah, should probably. Can I make it there?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just briefly talk about where I just came from. So the minor synthetic air quality permit for Fort Myer Plant 1, which is located at 5th and W Street, 3rd and W Street Northeast, which is in the heart of Eckington, right along the Metropolitan Branch Trail. There was a hearing today with the District Department of the Environment. It was very well attended. There was a petition that went around, a group of community neighbors, myself included, to kind of help, put together some really great petition and some talking points to get DOEE to really help with some of the air pollution and environmental justice issues we have in the neighborhood of Eckington. And so, yeah, as Commissioner Sani mentioned, I've testified today for the Environmental Justice Act and the Tree Preservation Act as well. And then I testified at the hearing with DOEE as well. Very well attended. We had more than 500 people sign that petition in the neighborhood and adjacent neighborhoods, and 300 people provided comments. And I think that's what Mr. Black in the back is looking at right now. With some really emotional testimony was provided about people's quality of life being affected. And it's a big issue. There were tons of people that were attending there. I just learned a moment ago that they've extended that comment period a week. So if you still have comments, please put that in. This is a big opportunity for us to really hold the big polluter accountable in an area that is highly dense and residential. And we'll talk about the ANC 5F resolution up for debate and discussion tonight, up for vote. So talk to them. Thank you very much, and appreciate Commissioner Hurst's leadership in helping co-sponsor that as well. So,
Thank you, guys.
that's all. Thank you.
Great. I see that Commissioner Bishop Henchman's hand is raised. Would you like to make an announcement?
There was. I was just to say what Commissioner Galvan just said. So he did a very good job testifying at DOEE. I didn't see his environmental justice testimony, but I hear that was good too. And Commissioner Sonics was good too. But I do want to thank all of the members of the community that testified to DOEE, that took time out, or that took time out to flyer, to sign the petition that was circulated. I'm hearing from so many people that like, oh, I heard about it because I saw a flyer. Nobody's saying I heard about it because, you know, I get the DOEE emails. One person was very nice. They said, I heard about it because I read your emails. But for the most part, it's the people who saw the flyers all over the neighborhood. And I know a lot of people helped on the distribution of those. So thank you. And it's great to hear that they're extending the comment deadline so that we can get the word out and make sure that DOE's decision will be as informed as possible. Thank you to everybody who's been helping out with that.
Fantastic. Any other announcements? Great. Don't see any hands raised, so I will move on to the next item on our agenda, which are announcements from representatives of elected officials. So I'll turn to Mr. Black from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations.
How y'all doing today? Good. Neighbors, residents, good evening. My name is Anthony Black. I'm your Ward 5 liaison for the Mayor's Office. Just a few quick updates on our end. The Cherry Blossom Parade, which will be March the 30th at the Monument. It'll be hosted downtown at the Monument. Music performances, things of that nature. So please get out and enjoy, have a little fun. Street sweeping. Street sweeping is in full effect. This is the last week that they will be issuing warnings. They've issued warnings for the first 2 weeks. This will be the last week they issue warnings. So if your car is not moved from a street sweeping location, you will be ticketed. Community cleanups. Now's the time of the year for community cleanups. Commissioners, residents, anyone can put together a community cleanup. With community cleanups, the government, you just let us know that you want to host a community cleanup. We will provide you with the utensils, trash bags, gloves, pickers, rakes, things of that nature. So if that's something that you're looking to do, please just reach out to me, or you can also reach out to the Office of Clean City. Ward days. Our ward days, my ward days are Tuesdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. These are just days in which I'm in the ward, putting my eyes on issues, concerns that have been sent to me by commissioners, neighbors, whatever the case may be. Please feel free to reach out to me for any issues, concerns that you may have that you're not being able to get any traction on. I can definitely do what I can to try to escalate those matters, whatever the case may be. I will drop my information in the chat, and I'm currently open for questions and concerns.
I'll go to the commissioners first, and then I'll open it up to the public. Mr. Black, I think you were raising a really great point on community cleanups, and also just like cleanliness around the neighborhood in general. I know that's been a issue that's been on top of mind. I've been hearing from a lot of neighbors. Could you share other like resources, other agencies that are involved that neighbors can reach out to if they do notice that like there is consistent litter, or you know, I know that illegal dumping is a big issue. I know that pet waste has also been a big issue.
Yes.
So if you could just share maybe like the agency, I know there are sometimes different agencies that are
Absolutely.
in charge of those various pieces. If you could kind of share who's in charge of what, I think that'd be really helpful.
So I will say this, Commissioner Anderson, the Office of the Clean City will be your go-to agency.
Okay.
And because they deal with all the umbrella under the other agencies goes through Office of Clean City.
Okay.
So any pet waste issues, if you take that to Office of Clean City, they will direct that to DPW. Things of that nature. So Office of the Clean City will be your go-to. I mean, for whatever issues may be when it comes to cleanliness. they will reach out to the respective agencies to have them do whatever work needs to be done, so that you're not going from channel to channel trying to get something accomplished. They're much more of your liaison when it comes to cleaning, and they deal with the other agencies. So I would recommend you always go through Office of the Clean City.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Does the Office of the Clean City have an email address that you could share? And how much time in advance, if I want to organize a cleanup or people in my neighborhood would like to, what do I need to do?
2 weeks in advance would be good enough time. The Office of Clean Cities Director Phil Thomas.
Okay.
His email address is phil.thomas@dc.gov, and the Office of Clean City at dc.gov as well. So I can drop more information in the chat as well, but I'll make sure you can get it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other commissioners? We'll open it up to the public.
Yes.
My name's Greg Fellin. I live on the 500 block of Edgewood Street Northeast, and I'm just representing some of the neighbors there, just in terms of like public safety and whatnot. And so I do appreciate you being here. So I've been over here in this neighborhood for about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
And so we know with Edgewood Commons, there's been a lot of stuff going on. And, just this past Friday, there was like another incident out there. I don't know if I even live there, just automatic gunfire. So like I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. And this is what I heard at like 10 o'clock at night. Two years ago, I had a bullet go through my front window, my back window into my garage. Last fall, woken up to automatic gunfire. It does seem to help when there is police presence in the park right there on 6th and Edgewood Street, there to kind of just, I know it doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but it does seem like there's a lot of direct action. Some people know that there's a shooting on Saturday night in front of Andy's Hardware during one of the festivals up there and whatnot. And these don't even almost register a bell now unless someone dies. And I know a lot of these are more directed, and I recognize that crime is down a good chunk year over year, 2 years, but it doesn't feel safer to me right now. And it is something that, I'm concerned and whatnot. As someone who's been here in DC for 13 years, my dad was born in DC. So I know there's a lot of stuff that comes living with in the city, but I think there's something we need with Edgewood Commons, especially with, I think there's a presentation this afternoon where they need to become more partners, and the small group of people that are hurting them too, working on that and just some of the stuff that comes with that.
No, I totally agree. Let me be the first to say I take this public safety issue very seriously. And I do know that through the secure DC crime bill, that there will be some things in place to kind of assist with that. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I do know, we have drug-free zones and things of that nature that will be in place, where MPD can do a little bit more. So I would suggest, again, you feel any form of, if you feel it's unsafe, always call 911 first. But I will do what I can to continue to work with your commissioners and MPD to try to figure out some much better solutions and alternatives for MPD presence. We do have to understand that there's a shortage, but at the same time, your issue and concern is much, that is a need. So, I'll definitely look into it, see what I can possibly get done with MPD to try to see if there can be a little bit more police presence right there. But again, I totally understand your frustration. I totally understand what time you're in, and I will do what I can to try to get some solutions.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry to hear that. I certainly had that happen in front of my home as well. If you haven't been connected with some of the resources, the Public Safety and Health Committee, whose chair is here, Daniel Aaron Price, has some really good resources for, instead of calling 911, which I feel like these days you sit on the line for a minute and a half and it's just terrifying. The text, there are just some great resources that the committee has put together. I recommend that. The other suggestion, and I know a lot of community members are doing this but may not realize, is that the Security C bill, while it passed and it was signed, it is not fully funded. And so there are portions that go into immediate effect that didn't cost anything to change, right? And so I think I almost feel like everyone's saying the crime is going down, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Right. We're not seeing any change in our day-to-day. It doesn't feel like that. And I think those are valid concerns, and we need to keep calling. We need to keep the pressure on council members, in my opinion, to make sure that they actually put money. But it is a tight budget year, and there are a lot of things that are going to compete for this. So I just would consider that as another option for you as an outlet as well.
And the other thing too is right after Mr. Black, someone from our next item on the agenda is a presentation from someone from Councilmember Parker's office. So I know he's listening as well. So I'm sure he'll be able to speak to that as well. But I'm really sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there was a presence there for almost a year, so it did seem to have quiet. I know there's sometimes it shifts things off, and it does seem to help when there is a presence of that Triangle Park right over at 6th and Edgewood Street, especially with some of the ancillary stuff that seems to have started to pick up again. And thank you for talking about the Clean City program and the cleanup thing. I had no idea that was a thing until you mentioned it. So that's something that.
And that's another, and I feel like that's another method to bring community together. I mean, that would be a great method to bring some community members together and just shed some light on some issues. I mean, through the community cleanups that I've been a part of, you can't imagine how much dialogue has happened and issues have been addressed because of it. So I always encourage community cleanups because again, it's just another method to bring members of your community together so that you can, dive into some deeper issues.
Thanks. And just one more quick public safety. I don't want to take up too much time. Just on the MBT trail over the recent,
yes.
There seems to be a pickup of mopeds and other utility vehicles on that, which you have kids right on there. My kid, I use it a lot, and there's too many access points for those type of vehicles to get on right now.
So I do know, and these mopeds that they're riding are 49cc vehicles, which is not being looked at by MPD or things of that nature because the CCs aren't above a certain level. But I know, based off the conversations through leadership, several residents have filed complaints just about the in and out driving that they're doing on the roads, things of that nature. So outrageous, yeah. It's definitely something being looked at. Definitely something being looked at right now. I wish I had more information to give you on that right now, but I predict in the near future there will be something in place to address this issue.
Thank you.
I see, and we'll go to some folks who are joining us online for more questions for Mr. Black from the mayor's office. I see a hand from Michael Murray. You've been asked to unmute.
Can I get on video too?
Sure, I can hear you.
Okay, so I am Greg's neighbor on Edgewood Street. And I'd like to just second his complaints. I have the exact same complaints with Edgewood Street, with Edgewood Commons. And I think it's just unacceptable that there's a shortage of police officers when our real estate taxes continue to go up every single year. And it's just great. And there's been nothing done to curb the crime on Edgewood Street, spilling over from Edgewood Commons or wherever else, and it's just gotten worse, and our taxes have gone up every year, and it's just I mean it's just unacceptable.
Definitely noted. Only thing I can do is flag these issues to leadership. Which I do every week in our weekly meeting. But again, I know that they're working to do some things to try to do a much better job of public safety. And it's going to take some time. But again, I totally understand your frustration. I take this very seriously, and I will definitely flag this to leadership.
And there was nothing in the crime bill that I saw that would really change the culture of MPD from being soft on crime to tough on crime. You know, when crime is under control and it's a non-issue, then it's fine to be soft on crime. But when crime is rising and out of control, then you have to be tough on crime. And there's nothing that really changes that in the bill. There was nothing that changed in terms of bail reform. A lot of the arrests that are made, a lot of these defendants are being ROR. That's released on your own recognizance, as opposed to bail being set and then being kept in pending trial, or often cash bail reform has been eliminated or not used at all. And it's just it seems that the policy is not keeping up with reality. When there's rising crime, there should be policy that's tougher on crime, and when there's lowering crime, that's when the policies being softer on crime are should be in effect. And there's just a major disconnect there, and it's I'm just not sure why that is. And it's just all out of whack. And I think just more needs to be done to be tougher on crime with the police department.
Do you mind if I go to Commissioner Williams, who has her hands up?
That's fine.
Commissioner Williams?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
I was trying to find my headphones. I understand about that shooting that happened over the weekend, but from my findings, no one from Edgewood Commons was involved. We need to get a handle. We need to go after guns as well. The teens today can get access to guns quicker than they can get a driver's license. And that's something else we need to look into, because my understanding is the persons that did the shooting was not from Edgewood Commons. They wasn't from this community. Mr. Black, is there
Yes, ma'am.
something that we can do to help curb having access to guns? Is there something that we can do to try to curb that some more?
So I do know the Office of Gun Violence Prevention has a grant currently open right now for any resident who feels that they want to try to address these issues around guns and youth. I can send you that information, Commissioner. But I mean, we can definitely sit down and just have conversation around this and try to figure out some solutions and alternatives.
Okay. Because
yeah,
violence interrupters in our neighborhood have been working strongly for the teens in Edgewood Commons. And like I said, there's more guns out here than there are driver's license.
totally agree, Commissioner. Yeah, we can definitely sit down and really just dive deep into a conversation of how and why. So please don't hesitate to give me a call. I'll drop my information in the chat again.
Okay.
But whenever you have some time, we can definitely just sit down and talk.
Well, I got time. I was in a car accident last week, so I'm a little sore, a lot of sore. A lot of sore.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
But I'm just blessed to be here. So
Absolutely.
You said Tuesdays and Fridays are your availability dates?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be in the field tomorrow from 10 to 5, and I'll be as well as Friday. So you just let me know. I can come to you. We can always meet somewhere, whatever the case may be. And that goes for all commissioners, residents. I will come to you and we can go address the issue in real time. So just let me know, and I'm always available.
Okay, could you put me on your docket for Friday?
I most certainly will. What time would you like, Commissioner?
Hopefully I'm moving faster by then. So I'm gonna say 11 or 12.
Okay. I'll close the block out from 11 to 1.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other hands? I know this is a very important topic and goes across our ANC, and I think it's really helpful to know that both Mr. Black and also representing the mayor's office, and also that the council member has staff members who are in our community who are willing to talk and kind of make sure that, you know, have boots on the ground to kind of walk the neighborhoods as well, so that we can talk more in depth. Any other questions for Mr. Black before we move on to Mr. Bonner from Councilmember Parker's office? Okay. I don't see any in the room or online, so thank you so much, Mr. Black.
Not
Thank
a
you so much. I'm sure a lot of conversations to be had, a lot of in-depth ones.
Absolutely.
Mr. Bonner, I will go to you.
Yes.
Excellent. You're unmuted.
I'm here. Hey, everyone. So I have a presentation, but I'm not going to display it right now just because I can usually go through quicker if I don't. Couple quick updates is there has been a big budget delay. We just got a message from Chairman Mendelson that the mayor and the CFO, there's some things going on, and the mayor has not yet delivered her budget. So there's a delay in the mayor delivering her budget to the CFO, which then takes 10 more days before it's submitted to the council. So we're planning to do that whole process this week, which would start the kind of concrete budget. She really puts the first draft out there, and then the mayor and then the council does all the hearings and debates the details, and then has negotiations from there. So this could significantly, one, just delay the budget getting done, but two, kind of our whole budget schedule is now in flux. So just want people to be aware of that. Although I do encourage you to still sign up for the budget hearings. You can go to dccouncil.gov, go to hearings, and then hearings management system to see the upcoming budget oversight hearings. Every agency, you want to give feedback on how MPD is doing, on how DPW is doing, on how any of these and what tweaks you think should be made for their budget this year, or to what the mayor proposes eventually, then you can do that and sign up to give your testimony there. We did the first of a number of street designations honoring famous local Black history figures in Ward 5 with ties to Ward 5. I think there is one in Eckington. I just forgot who the person is, but I will look that up and make sure everyone knows about it. We haven't yet scheduled when the unveiling ceremony is going to be. We did Healthy Communities spring cleanups in Eckington along Fort Lincoln, and Eckington along Lincoln Road and in Fort Lincoln. And so that was really great, but it is not a systemic change. Something we kept hearing a lot from different community members is we should have a bottle bill to make a return deposit system so that there's more incentives. And so that's something I brought up to the council member today. He still wants to learn more, but is open to the idea. But I know that that's a more systemic approach to addressing the issue of littering. Our next public safety call, which again, as the mayor's office, every council member's office, is the number one issue, and I will address some of the things that were brought up just before this. We've been doing monthly public safety calls to try and get the folks who are in charge of the different agencies, which is all under the mayor, trying to get them actually talking to each other, trying to get them really working together and making sure that the systems can actually happen in the conversations, and also creating a space for people from the community who want to address them and ask questions directly. So that is the last Wednesday of every month. That's next Wednesday, 3 to 4:30. You can go to ward5.us/monthly call to sign up for that. And we're going to have the head of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, as well as the 4D and 5D commanders. And 5D, 5F is all within 5D, just so you all know that. And I also wanted to update, less related to 5F, but the DDOT meeting with Director Kirschbaum, it is close to 5F is the T Street proposal. There's a lot of upset around that. And so, he's meeting with the director around that, as well as a number of other issues that have come up lately. I would say one thing before I kind of address what came up before when during Anthony's Q&A is please sign up for our newsletter. You can see everything that's going on that the council member is working on, what he's thinking about in terms of public safety, crime, criminal justice stuff, but also everything he's been doing in the community, what legislation he's working on, breakdown of the most recent legislation, programs to apply to, events coming up, all of that. You can go to ward5.us/newsletter to sign up directly, or if you just do /news, you can see the most recent ones and past issues. So a little bit about, just I want to clarify some things just because I heard some stuff in some of the comments before this. We are investing in a tough on crime approach. That is pretty much the only thing we are doing comprehensively. So we have been investing, increasing penalties, and adding crimes, fully funding MPD because the shortage is an attrition crisis. It's not a funding crisis. So people do not want to be police officers, and police officers are leaving the force at a very very quick pace. So it is not a resourcing issue. It is entirely an attrition issue. And they've upped the hiring bonuses. There's all these extra programs that they've added. It is still an issue despite all that. So I would say we are investing in the tough on crime approach, but where this is maybe a controversial thing to say. So this is my personal phrasing that I try and use is I think we're a little incompetent on crime, and that we're not really fully investing in a strategic approach, a comprehensive approach, so that all the different programs we have, all the different things, every time someone's like, well, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we investing in career technical education? Why aren't we doing violence interruption? Why aren't we increasing penalties? Why aren't we putting cameras? We're doing all of those things. Just each of them are in their own little silo, or none of them are talking to each other. There's not that systemic, coordinated, strategic approach. So a couple of things I see that could help. The crime lab lost its accreditation. The mayor been trying to get her to take this seriously and really get its reaccreditation. It has slowed down our prosecution process, and it has made it more expensive to process things. In terms of the sentencing choices and leaving people to go back to the streets, that someone said, that is still up to the judges and the U.S. Attorney Office discretion. Those are federal positions, so actually we have no oversight over them. That's one of the downsides of not being a state. Now we have changed that and increased the pretrial detention, but in the end, it hasn't really made a difference. We did that a year ago, and then we still had all of that, and we've increased some of the jail population, but it hasn't necessarily adjusted things. I do think that we could be doing career technical education, workforce development, and violence interruption in a lot smarter ways. Right now, they aren't working because they aren't comprehensive. There's all these arbitrary boundaries. There's all these, oh, you do this for a couple weeks, or here's a little program, but there's no really mapping them out. And the mayor had a program she put out called Building Blocks to Coordinate Issues, and people have promised to, focus their coordination on specific people, but they've all kind of disappeared. We don't really know what's happening with them, and there's no real funding towards those programs anymore, which is unfortunate. I think a lot of this is an approach to economic development that has not really invested in the locals and instead have tried to solve our problems by attracting outsiders. I think we can do both, but we're only really doing that the second one and not really investing in the people to make sure that we're really comprehensively and assertively treating people, getting people into resources. Finally, in terms of guns, a lot of that is coming from Virginia. The Supreme Court has limited our capacity to be able to deal with guns directly. The council member does have a reasonable controls on firearms bill to address it more head on with a creative approach that California did, which would create a private right of action to sue gun manufacturers for the harm that they do. But so that's one way to go after it, and you could call the Judiciary Committee to try and have them host a hearing on it. And then I would also say that, as Commissioner Williams said, sometimes people blame the building or the people because even when it isn't necessarily actually the issue, right? People are coming and shooting people from that building. That doesn't mean that that building is the problem. So I just want people to be aware of that. Sometimes where the problems areas are not necessarily that there's a problem with those spaces. It's that there are people outside or people from other communities not far away where there's beefs where those folks are attacking our neighbors. And so I want to make sure we give we honor and protect and center victims in these conversations and not the perpetrator. So I'm happy to take any more questions and answer any more details that people want.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bonner. You did go over time, but I did think this was a really important discussion. So I'm not being a bad chair. I thought this was an important discussion to have. So, but I will go to commissioners first, and then also members of the public who would like to ask Mr. Bonner any questions. We will have more broad public comment after this. So this is mostly to ask the council member's office any questions. I know he did a really great job in talking about this. So I'll go to commissioners first. Any in the room? Any online?
Oh, I do want to speak positively about your the idea for a bottle bill and what I think that could do to prevent litter. Please do let the council member know that there would be some support amongst ANC commissioners in his district.
There is a coalition fighting for it. There was a long time ago, there was a ballot initiative that industry got all wrapped up in, and so I'm sure there'll need to be counter narratives. So if y'all pass something or want to bring that coalition in to share, I think that would be helpful for making the case to the council.
All right.
Great. Excellent. Any other commissioners? Perfect. Members of the public, would anyone in the room or online, please, if you're in the room, physically raise your hand. If you're online, please use the raise your hand feature.
Sure. So just one quick question for the mayor's office and just one comment for yes, we know that they may not be the ones coming to shooting, but I've talked to enough of the MPT officers around there. There's a reason why they're going there and doing the shooting. There's an ongoing turf battle between them and some other people. So I think it is a little disingenuous to say, yes, the people that shot at them weren't from there. But at the same time, the MPD has said people from there have shot at them at their locations. And so just keep that in mind. And then talking about the comprehensive reform, one thing I haven't heard in talking, and as I was looking at schools for my daughter, from the principals, is the high truancy rate, especially starting at in elementary school of the kids. They were saying, the principals there and the teachers I spoke with, a good portion of kids are not showing up. They've already lost them by the time they're in middle school. They're already getting into stuff, and by that point, they've already lost. So I would like to hear more about what's being done for overall truancy, because it seems like since the pandemic, the truancy is way out of control and there's no enforcement of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And truancy is one of those things that I think is where almost all the council energy is going towards now. Now that security which, again, people are saying nothing's being done. There is stuff being done. It's just not enough necessarily, or you can debate on the details. Truancy is something the council member I know is working on, and I think there was also a truancy bill from Councilmember White. I heard from Councilmember Allen might be putting one out. So I think there's going to be a number of bills that also there's going to be a conversation over the next couple of months about this. My understanding is the enforcement is there. It is just the level of truancy is so enormous that is not really an enforcement issue. It's not like we need to catch them. We need them to stop not showing up to school. And when they start showing up to school, there isn't a noticing. The noticing isn't happening well, or it's not very strict, or it's until they've already missed 10, 15 days of school before any kind of action happens. And then the action is all rooted in the school. And it isn't really connected to DHS or other human services or connected to the violence interruption program. And so I know our legislative staff is working on something related to that. To make sure that we're actually making sure those systems are working. Again, we have all the pieces in the city. Now, obviously, we might have some steep budget cuts, unfortunately, depending on what the mayor does. But the infrastructure is there, the pieces are there. We just need them working together, and right now they're not. And so we're hoping to change that through coming legislation. And yeah, I also understand what you were saying also, but that you know, their crime and victims are sometimes a two-way street. But I just also want us to be conscientious of the way that we're talking about our neighbors, to make sure that we're actually pointing blame where it's due.
It does seem like that's been a common thread in some of the comments we've made in the meeting this evening about kind of the thorough line of like making sure that the resources that are available through the government are kind of speaking to each other and kind of like coordinating and trying to figure out the right person in charge. So I think that's a good point to raise. I do see a hand raised from Michael Murray. We will unmute you if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, to follow up on Greg's truancy complaint, it makes sense because there is an outbreak in violent juvenile crime in the city, and the logical response would be to crack down on juvenile crime, violent juvenile crime, maybe charge them as adults. But in fact, the response has been the opposite, to just not punish it, have it be have them keep their youth offender status, the juvenile offender status, and it just seems illogical.
Well,
From
a carceral perspective, what has been shown from evidence is to actually stop people. It is entirely how swift and how certain prosecution is. Not necessarily just the length of prosecution. That has not been shown to be that effective. Now, we've done that. Again, we've done both of them. A lot of these decisions are based around the prosecutor's discretion. And those have been tweaked in Security C, as well as the juvenile crime bill that was about a year ago. But after that juvenile crime bill passed on an emergency basis, there were still many months of increasing, right? Even though we were arresting more, even though we were cracking down. So I think sometimes there's this perception that we aren't doing those things. And I think what people don't miss is we are doing those things. It's not necessarily being effective. It is kind of a quirk sometimes of having a federal but local judicial system and prosecution system. But in terms of, we have upped the amount of pretrial detentions that are going on. We have been cracking down on it. We have thrown everything we can of resources at the police department. It is slightly, stickier and trickier than just being a little tougher.
My name's Caleb Hart. I'm on Lincoln Road.
Sam, can you hear?
Just barely.
I'll try to talk a little
louder.
louder.
Yeah, or feel free to come closer to the mic too.
Yeah, I live on Lincoln Road in Northeast. But my question for your office, as well as just for other commissioners, is: are there ways, particularly in regards to truancy and where we're seeing as a starting point for a lot of these issues with crime, where community members and others can get involved to support these students and support, particularly, I know even the number of teachers that are friends of mine that are struggling to manage classrooms, to be able to notice when kids show up to school, because they are under resourced in that way. So if there are ways that that we can assist our community members as teachers, as parents, to help keep these kids in school, it would be helpful to know what we have access to be able to help support them.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I'm not totally sure on what you might mean in terms of like how to keep the kids in school. I think, I know there's a lot of PTOs that are doing really amazing work. I think this is a little less related to juvenile and kid crime, but I've been leading a coalition of neighbors, city agencies, local institutions, businesses along North Capitol, specifically between Florida and Rhode Island, or Florida and New York, I should say, although a little bit up towards Rhode Island as well, where I live, to try and make more space such that groups and people and individuals and leaders can be more involved in actually staying, like, building deeper relationships with the folks who, some of whom are causing the issues and some of whom are just in desperate need of service or addiction support or housing. We're calling it the North Capitol Trust Builders, and it's all about building that kind of hyper local work of, here's this really, it's an open air drug market. It's been that way for decades. We are investing in the tough approach. We've added cameras. The MPD was on there saying, we're arresting people for everything, literally minor stuff, broken windows policing. And there was still that same week, he said that the day before someone had been set on fire. So, it is not necessarily, a lot of these issues are not just a toughness or being a little tougher approach. We are investing those things to be responsive to where people are and to try and send those right signals. But at the same time, it's not necessarily working. So what kind of hyper local coordination can we be doing such that it creates space for folks like yourself to have some agency to join in the conversation and be a part of the solution? We're still figuring that out. It's a little different area than 5F, but it borders 5F. So feel free to reach out to me and I can put my information in the chat if you're interested in talking more about those types of hyper local and community-centered approaches towards keeping everyone safe and also making sure that the systems we have are actually working.
Can I comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Additionally, I think in regards to keeping kids in schools, I was thinking of organizations, even like I'm a part of College Bound, which is mentoring students to stay in school, having other opportunities to keep them incentivized to be in school. And even DC Mentors Initiative, I think, is another organization that adults to these students or other individuals that need help, a more creative approach than just necessarily attacking the crime. That some of that still needs to happen, but finding more creative ways to stop it before it happens.
Yeah, well, you just listed two really good ones. There's also the Ward 5 Violence Prevention Network, which has been doing a good job, especially it's rooted in Edgewood Commons, as well as the Edgewood Brookland Family Support Collaborative and Beacon House. I really recommend people engaging with especially the Ward 5 Violence Prevention and Beacon House. Beacon House is looking for guest coaches or like volunteer coaches. And Violence Prevention Network does a variety of different programming. And they could always use support, community partners. They also could use more funding. So that's something I'm hoping we can continue to advocate for, even in a tough budget year.
Yeah, I think when you made your comment that I figured where you were getting at was more about like volunteer opportunities and mentorship. And my partner works he's a career teacher and now works on kind of lowering the dropout rate. So this is a conversation we talk a lot about at home. So I think Sam has highlighted some great organizations. So as you, I know Higher Achievement does a lot of work in DC as well. Thank you for shining a light on some of those organizations. I know we're quite over time on this section, and I do want to go on to public comment, but I want to quickly go and see if there's any other, if anyone else would like to contribute to this discussion or have a question for Mr. Bonner before we move on in our agenda. All right, don't see any hands raised. So I will say thank you so much, Mr. Bonner. Great information as always. And we will make sure that folks have your email and also the link to the council members website.
Awesome. Thank you all. And
Thanks
I
so much.
apologize. I do have to hop to the Brooklyn or the Bloomingdale Civic now that there's a double here. So hoping I can get some updates from you tomorrow, Commissioner.
Okay. Great.
See you, Sam.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you all.
Amazing. So we will move on to the next section of the agenda, which is public comment. Just to kind of provide context of how this differs from the previous two sections we've had, this is more general. If anyone would like to talk about any issue, this isn't necessarily directed to the mayor's office or or the council member's office. This is kind of an opportunity for the community to raise concerns. We've allotted 2 minutes for speaker, up to 10 minutes total. I know we are over time, but I think this is really important. So I will open it up to the public. Mr. Price.
When it rains significantly on the MBT, right underneath the tunnel, around Q Street, right near Alethea Tanner Park, there's constant flooding. And I'm constantly trying to figure out, like, is 311 the best source to locate, like, how can we fix that flooding? And there's like so many headings that we could go under, so I'm not sure which one it falls under. So some guidance on that. I'm happy to put in the 311 report. I'm happy to like message whoever. I just don't know who's the correct person to go to for that type of maintenance. So.
Great.
Like Joe handle that.
Yeah, I feel like perhaps Commissioner Bishop Henchman would like to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll wait for the next section, but yes.
Amazing. Perfect. Any other comments from anyone here from the public? And we'll have the commissioners respond kind of in response to all the public comment. Right.
I do one brief comment just for someone who has a daughter's about to enter pre-K 3, going to schools and doing my just interviews. It's just one question about noise, the aim of remote debt, just making sure as our neighborhood grows and becomes more dense and more people, and I've heard they've taken a lot of just immigrants that have come in, the program making sure that it sounds like the school's at capacity or going to over capacity as we've welcomed in a lot of people, just making sure that Noise Elementary has all the resources it needs to support expanding population of people, especially if sounds like they were slightly over capacity. And then second, I've said a lot at the beginning. I just want to say I've been here almost 3 years now and over in Edgewood, and very much love being here, love raising my daughter here, and love to walk on the MBT trail, the new bike lobbies would be great if we end up going to one of the schools down there, and it's just a good neighborhood to live in.
Great. Amazing. Would anyone else like to make a comment? Great. With none noted, I'll go ahead and move on to response to public comment from commissioners. Commissioner Bishop Henchman, I see that you turned on your camera. I will go to you first.
Yes, just on that individual that mentioned the MBT issue under New York Avenue. I didn't see who it was, but if somebody could get him my information, just go ahead and email me at 5f06@anc.dc.gov. It is a DDOT issue that they've determined is more than just a maintenance issue, that it's like a larger project. And so I've been working with them on identifying what needs to be done, and I can update both that individual and anyone else on what that is and where we're at, and we could certainly use the help. And yes, keep putting it in 311 every time you see it. Great.
Thank you so much. I think the individual has your email address, so might be a familiar face. You'll hear from him shortly.
It's Daniel Aaron Price.
Okay, good.
Great. Excellent. Any other commissioners, would any other commissioners like to respond?
Just a note on that particular issue, Commissioner Bishop mentioned, I think there are a handful of small areas along the MBT that are like that. So I don't know if, and I'm happy to help out with providing those locations for you. But hopefully when DDOT takes a look at this, they look at a comprehensive and not just a individual spot.
Yeah.
That DDOT is well known for that, right?
Yes, exactly.
I think we should probably go and find the exact
yes.
GPS coordinates.
I will give you those coordinates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hurst.
For noise, I don't know what their budget specifics are, but right now the schools are setting their budgets. There's a LSAT and 77 that advises the principal who sets the spending priorities and which positions are still available. There were 77 DC public schools that lost purchasing power, according to the Washington Teachers Union. I don't know if noise was one of them, or whether they retained the same ability to retain teachers, but there are a lot of schools and a lot of colleagues that I have working in DC public schools that are worried right now because their school will lose some position or some number of positions next year. It would be good to check in as you're interviewing and talk to them, and it could be that they could use your help advocating, and it could be that they're fine. but yeah, do ask and raise the word. There are schools that really could use our help advocating right now.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Any other comments? None noted. I will close public comment and move on to the next item on our agenda. I did not receive any presentations relating to agenda items. Pausing in case anyone would like to differ. So I will move on to item 8, which is the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is a tool that we use to basically vote on a slate of resolutions holistically, so that these are ones that we'll basically vote on as a slate. We have currently 5 items listed under there. I will move to remove item E, which was the regarding the ANC 5F budget. Since we discussed that earlier, I actually did double check the budget for 2024, and we did have a line item for the mailbox. It was off by a couple of dollars, but a negligible amount. So I move to strike item E, and I will ask if any other commissioners would like to. The way this works too, any commissioner can request to remove any item for the from the consent agenda if they would like to have a further discussion on it. So I will give the commissioners a moment to look at the consent agenda and see if they would like to remove any other item.
Yes, I'd like to request to remove item A, the resolution on the air quality permit, specifically because there was some additional language based on some other research between now and the time that it was submitted that I'd like to see if the commission would be willing to add that.
Great. Okay, so are any objections for removing A from the consent agenda? With none noted, it will be removed and moved to the action agenda. Any other commissioners wanting to remove any of the other items? Great. So for clarity, the consent agenda that we will be voting on is for items B, C, and D. So the resolution requesting DPR install an additional child fence at Edgewood Rec Center is item B. Item C is resolution requesting agreement on snow, ice, and litter removal on the Franklin Street Northeast and Monroe Street Northeast bridges. And D is resolution in support of Metropolitan Branch Trail connectivity to Taylor Street corridor mobility lanes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to vote on the consent agenda.
Great.
As noted.
Any objections? With none noted, we will move to voting on the consent agenda. I need to pull up your last names really quickly. I just have the commission, the SMDs listed. Okay, Commissioner Hurst.
Aye.
Votes aye. Commissioner Sani?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Galvin?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson is myself. I vote aye. Commissioner Bishop Henchman?
Aye.
I heard an aye.
Yes.
And great. And Commissioner Pinckney is not present. So with a vote of 6 to 0, with six ayes and with 6 ayes, the motion passes. Great. Moving on to the action agenda. The next item on the agenda, since the BZA case 21080 has been removed from the action agenda at the top of our meeting, we have a discussion on the resolution on air quality permit 7301 SM for Fort Myers Construction Corporation, plant number 1 at 2001 5th Street Northeast. Commissioner Galvin.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Anderson. So this permit or this resolution, I'll just quickly go over it. There's a lot on it. It's about 5 or 6 pages long.
And I will just say, just to quickly
Yes.
add that if anyone would like to follow along, the text of the resolution is on our website, anc5f.com.
Thank you. The resolution of really focuses on areas of improvement to give the District Department of Environment advice and comments on the draft synthetic air permit. Well, what the heck is a draft synthetic air permit? We'll see if I can explain it. But essentially, it's below like a major polluter type of permit. So it's much smaller, which is what the minor stands for. And there are several different types of equipment that is used at the Fort Myer facility. A crusher, there's some generators, some engines, some oil tanks. And so, you know, some of that equipment is basically described in detailed terms by the District Department of Environment, how they will actually monitor, test, and maintain air quality and keep caps under a certain level. That's the best I can do for giving you a lowdown of what it means. What we have talked about is several points in the whereas, because this really does affect if you have walked along the MBT, when in the middle of the day, when that plant is going, you will smell the acrid asphalt, kind of tar oil smell. There are tons and hundreds of tons of emissions that come out of that plant on a yearly basis. They have reduced it substantially, but I think there's a lot of folks in the community, which was, as I mentioned earlier, that are very aware of this and have had health effects associated with it. I heard some pretty emotional testimony today about you know, people growing up with asthma in the neighborhood that have lived here and had recurring migraines issues. So it's a pretty significant issue. So there are very specific points. I'm not going to go through line item on each of those points, but what I do want to recommend that, you know, Commissioner Bishop Henchman and I had kind of looked at some common sense kind of changes that we recommend to the District Department of the Environment. Nice thing about a resolution is once if it passes the commission, the District Department of Environment will be required to respond to each of the points that we have in that resolution. So the two items, which I did send to the commissioners this afternoon, but I will read them real quickly. They would essentially be in the whereas component, and it can be put anywhere on those particular pieces. It will be one bullet point is whereas ANC 5F endorses to increase a twice a year reporting, which is what is currently to investing in advanced air quality mobile monitoring of multiple individual units at various locations throughout the community, near residents' home and along the Metropolitan Branch Trail, that share minute-by-minute data that is publicly shared. The data should be shared by DOEE via a public online dashboard that reports instantaneously what the chemical makeup and odors are in the neighborhood. The dashboard should also include 311 complaints, follow-ups, and a plan of action, reporting, and respective follow-up and satisfactory closing of ticket with the resident who filed it. There were a ton of comments today that people say, I've been putting in 311 tickets, hundreds of them, and there's nothing happens when I do that. And so I think we need to rebuild trust with the community and let them know what DOEE is doing in order to address that and make sure that those get addressed. And that also that this dashboard, we know what is happening, what is actually being polluted on an instantaneous basis. So that's that particular one. Commissioner Bishop Henchman mentioned today in his testimony that he had to request a Freedom of Information Act to get the information about what was actually being polluted into the air. And that's crazy. The fact that we have to go a way around to actually get access to information to know what is being put into our lungs and into our day-to-day lives. So that's what that is. The second one is really kind of a limitation on the hours of operation of the asphalt plant. So this says, may establish a condition. So
DOE has the ability to may establish a condition in a permit issued pursuant to this chapter that limits in a manner that is enforceable as a practical matter emissions from a source so as to avoid applicability of the permitting requirements of section 300.1. And I know this gets details, but DOE will know what that means as well. It is not self-evident that this language precludes or requires any hourly or other operational limitations. Given that the permit allots 10 hours, today it allots it for 10 hours a day for operation and a limit of 150 tons per hour. That's the maximum that it can actually produce. If fully running, this would be the equivalent of 546,000 tons per year. Currently, the draft permit sets a limit at 240. So already it's kind of conflicts. Basically, they're saying you can run 10 hours a day at 150, but that's actually more than double of what you are actually required to. And then, especially given that this is, you know, within probably a half a mile radius, even in our ANC alone, there are 14,000 people. I'm sure that within a half a mile radius, there's probably 8,000 residents that live, and it is a high density area. Recommend limitations from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekdays only, excluding weekends and holidays, so that we can enjoy the air on those days and not have to feel like we can't enjoy our weekends and holidays. Reducing that basically reduces the capacity down to 257,000, and that can even account for emergency periods of time. So I know that's a lot. I know this is in the weeds, but I would like to consider that and amend that to the resolution under the whereas statements. Open to other comments or questions or edits.
Just a procedural thing.
Yes.
So are you making a motion to add this text to the resolution at this point, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you moving to have
Well,
more discussion?
Well, we can have more discussion about it. I'm fine with that, but
Okay.
I'll just state what I said first. Yeah.
Thank you for that refresher. It's helpful. I did read this over the weekend, but since then, lots of other numbers in my head.
Yes.
What is the current output of Fort Myer?
Oh, the current output I think is in the 700 range. It is substantially over it, and I actually I don't know if there is a limitation on the permit that they currently have today, and I think that's part of the problem. But I can try to look that up.
I just needed to get a ballpark figure,
Yeah.
so that's fine.
One thing that I would maybe like to ask you to do, just because I think
Sure.
we've been talking, different commissioners have talked about the hearing and about Fort Myers. I think it might be helpful to take a step back for people who may not be as close to the issue. I think everyone is familiar with Fort Myers being the asphalt plant that is in our neighborhood, but just take a step back, bird's eye view. What is it? What's on the table? Why is it timely? Why now?
Yes. Got it. Okay. So the District Department of the Environment has issues permits for plants and industrial sites that are within the District of Columbia. This permit has expired. It actually expired a while ago. I think Commissioner Bishop Henchman can tell me, but it's at least a year or two, or maybe it's just a past year. And in that expiration, they also were required to submit an odor control plan. As I understand it, this plant has been there a very long time, for at least 2 decades, and has been polluting without as many restrictions and processes in place to keep it in check. And so the reason why why this is important right now is because the District Department of the Environment, as part of public law, they submitted the draft permit available for public comment, and our opportunity as citizens and residents, we can testify and talk about specific portions of that permit that they will listen to and potentially change. And so this resolution is a part of taking kind of best management practices, has taken analysis from lots of different stakeholders in the community. Fortunately, the thing I love about DC is no matter where you go, there's an expert in somewhere in your neighborhood about something. And we've really kind of been able to grab as much information from folks. I've done a detailed read of everything as well, and try to really put some common sense on this, so that they can be a good neighbor, because right now it's kind of untenable for folks. And that was what was, so today's hearing was today at 5:30 p.m. We allowed the commissioners to go first, thankfully, because I'm sure it's still going. But the reason why it needs to be, well, why it's up for a vote tonight is because the deadline when this was drafted was tonight at 11:59 p.m. that all comments needed to be in by tonight. And so that's why, but there's been a lot of back and forth. There was a hearing or a public information session on March 6th, where we had a lot of back and forth with DOE to get details about what does this mean in layman's terms. We went through that effort, and there were a lot of additional questions that came out and follow up. And so this resolution is a conglomeration of all of those components together. Does that help a little bit?
I think that is helpful. I see that Commissioner Bishop Henchman's hand is up, so I will go to him.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to Commissioners Gallivan and Hurst for sponsoring this. And I know our Public Safety Committee and Mr. Aaron Price in particular had a big hand in drafting it with a lot of community input from neighbors. And I'm grateful to all of them for that hard work. And, you know, I hope we do pass this, even if we don't pass it. A lot of what was come up with has made its way into other comments that have been submitted for the record. And that just goes to show that, like, when we do things right, and we're kind of ahead of the game a little bit, we can have a substantial impact on everyday life for people in the area. As you all know, the facility is within my SMD, as is 2,000 of the neighbors who are closest to it, although this facility certainly impacts not just everyone in Eckington, but everyone in Ward 5 and part of the city. You know, we are doing more than our fair share of solving the city's housing crisis, as well as doing more than our fair share of producing the asphalt that all of the road work in the city uses. And you know, hopefully DOE will understand that this is not just, you know, angry neighbors not wanting, you know, who are upset at some minor thing, but this is a significant issue to the quality of life for a lot of people. And I'm very grateful that we have not only pulled that information together in a very persuasive and constructive way, but also heavily footnoted it and really resourced it. So I'm grateful for the committee for all that work. Just to answer, I think it was a question from Commissioner Sani on the operational limits. This permit renewal, which, as Commissioner Galvan correctly noted, has technically expired, although under the law they're able to continue operating until DOE gets around and issues a new permit. It will reduce the annual asphalt production limit from about 1.75 million tons to 240,000 tons. Now, that does sound like a lot, but I want to caution everybody that this is essentially bringing it down to about what they produce now. So it's more about preventing kind of a runaway expansion of production that's currently permitted, sorry, pardon the pun, by the permit, than reducing it. Hourly production, again, dropping from 200 tons per hour to 120 tons per hour, but that's a similar thing. Where we'll see meaningful differences from the old permit to the new permit are the filterable particulate matter emission limit. That'll go from 40 pounds an hour to 3.5 pounds an hour, and that is a reduction from the status quo. Total particulate matter, that's not just what filters capture, but like what filters don't capture. And that's kind of some of the dangerous stuff. Down to that, and that's a new limit. Right now, there's no limit at all. There'll be a new limit of 5.9 pounds per hour. They're going to be stepping up enforcement on engine idling. And if you ever see an idling Fort Myer truck, please take a photo of it, send it along. I've got, you can either send it to me or you can send it to the company, but they do want to step up on that. Odor emission, addressing that, especially along the Metropolitan Branch Trail with some new technology that they'll be installing. There is some good stuff in this permit. Now, I don't want to necessarily be just a cheerleader for the permit. There's a lot of things that we wish were in it, and the resolution goes into that. Commissioner Galvan went into a little bit of that, and he's got 2 amendments to add 2 more things, which at the end of this monologue, I'm going to second those amendments because I think those are good ideas. The main one being especially a dashboard where our residents can monitor this stuff anytime they want. Because right now, there's a report that comes out twice a year. And if you want anything more detailed than that, you have to FOIA it. And as I think somebody already mentioned, I FOIA'd this stuff a week ago. I still haven't gotten it. And that's probably why we got the extension on the comment deadline, because that's a little embarrassing. People should be able to monitor this stuff, and people should have some faith that when they put stuff in 3-on-1, something happens. And I don't think people have that faith right now. And so, that's one of the amendments. So I certainly hope everybody will support it, as well as the overall resolution. So, Madam Chair, with that, I'll second Commissioner Galvan's motion.
I think procedurally he hadn't made a motion yet.
I did say it, and then I did.
Yeah, he hadn't motioned yet. He wanted to discuss the suggestions, and then he would motion.
So in that case, I will move the amendments that Commissioner Galvan circulated earlier.
Thank you.
Great, excellent. I just wanted to say thank you so much. This has been so much work, and if you go through the resolution, it's really impressive how comprehensive it is. I know the other commissioners have touched on that, but it also not only goes into air quality monitoring, but it also talks about, the trucks in the neighborhood have been a big issue and disruptive to neighbors. That has been a persistent issue. If you go in, it really, really touches on a lot of concerns that this facility has brought into our neighborhood. So thank you for being so comprehensive. One procedural thing is, I think that you had mentioned that these amendments would go under a whereas clause, correct?
Yes.
Does it not? I think it might make sense as a further resolve, because it's recommending action, right?
You're absolutely correct. Yes.
Resolve that. Okay, great. I wanted to clarify
Thank
that.
you.
Not to be Madam Chair and only contributing procedurally, but great, excellent. So the motion would be to add these under a resolve clause.
Therefore be
Great.
resolved.
Any other commissioners who would like to speak to this before we take motions?
I would like to propose to amend this just to add some clarity around what the hours are.
Yep.
So specifically coming back to what you'd said earlier, Commissioner Galvan, this 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., is that an hours during which they're permitted to operate, and they should not be operating outside of those hours, or is it inverted?
Yes. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. is the only time that they would be permitted to operate.
Got it. And we selected those hours for?
In this particular case, it was pure math. The amount of hours is a pure math. The idea is that we pick times that the trail is not as heavily used. So I know that their commuters are going through there starting at 6 a.m. at least till 9. Obviously, there are more people that happen after, but in order to be least disruptive to the commuting folks along the MBT, and then the evening rush, which I'm sure starts earlier as well, but that's kind of how the math worked out.
So we have a finite number of hours that we were able to flex throughout the day, and that was chosen as the least disruptive block.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I would propose that we amend the hours, amend to the second paragraph you submitted to be explicit about what 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. is, because right now it says they're only permitted. It makes it sound like they can do unpermitted operation outside of those hours.
Got it. Okay.
I just want to be very explicit that these are the hours upon which you shall operate.
Okay.
Maybe changing the word from to outside.
Recommend limitations outside 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekdays only, excluding holidays.
So basically, what we would be saying in that is that, in the case of an emergency, they could apply for an exception to operate outside of the 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. window. Is that what, is that's what, how that reads to me personally.
Yeah, so the initial, so the emerge.
Okay, the one,
Sorry,
actually,
go
one
ahead.
quick thing was also, I think when we were doing the math of like, the permit allows for 10 hours of operations a day at a limit of 150 tons. And when you do the math, I presume the reason why, if you do that math, it turns up to 546 rather than 2 and 40 is like basically they're allotting for like times where they might have to run 10 hours a day. I'm not
Yes,
advocating
yes,
for.
yes,
I'm
Yep.
not advocating for 10-hour operation, but I think that's probably why the math doesn't math.
Right,
Yes.
you're correct, Commissioner Anderson. They currently don't really have an hours limitation, in part because, you know, I don't really know a lot. I'm not an expert on asphalt production, although I've learned a lot in the last year, is that asphalt has to be hot when it's used. And this is essentially all of where DDOT gets its asphalt from, is this facility. So the reason, you know, we're talking about limitations outside of those timeframes rather than a straight prohibition outside of those timeframes is because that's equivalent of saying DDOT shall do no road work outside of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., which has problems too.
Right. I think that's an important point because I do think that is a weird particular thing about, again, not an asphalt engineer, but that is one of the points that I think is frequently brought up, that there are asphalt as a material has some immediate, there's a reason that the people who advocate for, I won't say advocate, what I understand, one of the particular considerations when using asphalt is that there's also like a time and distance limit where it has to be hot, and that's why it has to be located centrally in DC, I think is often a point that is raised.
Yeah.
Which I think is a particular thing of the asphalt as a material. Is that right? You're more of a civil engineer.
Yeah. I'll talk only because I've seen the process happen myself. So concrete is definitely the one that's problematic because you only have 30 minutes and you got to keep it moving in a rotating drum. Asphalt is a little bit different. Yes, it comes out hot, but they actually have a machine on site that superheats it before it is laid, and then it cools. So I think that there is some. I think they're making an excuse that they have to do all of the asphalt production at this particular location. I would challenge that a little bit, and I think that if we limit them, and even DDOT, yes, there are certain cases where we have to do work at night, but I think, and the resolution kind of talks about what that limitation would really be in emergency, like real emergency situations, and the time, the notice that we might receive for doing something like that. So just a clarification. That's been my experience.
Got it. Any other commissioners have amendments to the suggested wording?
So Commissioner Sarni, are you okay with changing that so it says is nearby more than 8,000 residents within a half-mile radius, and then I'll just put a period there and say we recommend limitations outside the 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekdays only for production.
Can we exclude holidays, or is that?
Yeah, and then it says, comma, excluding holidays and weekends, reducing the capacity down to. Okay, great, I have that.
Okay, great. Any other amendments on the suggested wording?
I'll make one note here. Then I will also say, this can even account for emergency time periods. I think I'll clarify that just to say the emergency time periods, the limitation on the number of tons is accounted for in the emergency time periods. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay, great. Just doing a time check that it is 8:30 p.m. Are there any other points from commissioners? Are there any motions on the floor?
Commissioner Henson moved, right?
I think we moved to second. Someone just needs to make the actual motion, I think, to move to amend the.
All right, so
I move to amend with the amendments that Commissioner Galvin circulated as have just been workshopped from Commissioner Sani, changing from to outside, and I guess adding a period. Was there anything else, Commissioner Galvin, that I missed there?
The only other thing was
Moving it from a whereas to a resolve clause.
yep, therefore be it resolved.
Resolve clauses.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, that's the kind of combined motion that I made.
Great.
Yes.
Excellent.
Great.
Perfect. Is there a second?
A second.
Excellent. Are there any objections to this amendment? Great, with none noted, so the amendments have been adopted. Is there another motion on the floor? Would anyone like to
I'd
move
like to, I'd like to motion for a vote.
Oh, great, excellent.
With the adopted.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Great, excellent. Any objections? No? Okay, great. We will move to a roll call vote on this resolution. Commissioner Hurst.
Aye.
Great, Commissioner Hurst votes aye. Commissioner, who's 502? Commissioner Sani.
Aye.
Great. Commissioner Williams.
No.
Commissioner, okay. Commissioner Galvin.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson votes aye. Commissioner Bishop Henchman.
Aye.
Great. And Commissioner Pinckney is not present. So with 6 commissioners present, we have a vote of 5 yeas, 1 no, and 0 abstentions. And this motion passes. Great, excellent. The next item on our agenda are committee updates. We'll run through these quickly. I know that there is still a presentation that we have on the agenda, so we keep that in mind. I know we've talked a lot, but I think a lot of these things have been really helpful. So first thing is Alcohol Licensing Committee and Cannabis Committee.
Melissa is unable to make the meeting, but she did provide a written report that I will read into the record.
Right.
We had no business and canceled our meeting for March. We are looking at alternate dates because the second Tuesday is too close to the new ANC meeting. We are working on a resolution to support permanent legislation around regulation of cannabis licensing.
Okay, great. We will move on. Community Engagement Committee.
Yes, we've been investigating what we need to fully empower our committees with a Zoom license. Due to OANC guidance, we've been advised to not share credentials for the main Zoom account with committees because the sanctity of the general meeting appointment is enough that there needs to be a firewall in access. I've been enabling it by joining committee meetings and granting host privileges, but that doesn't scale. So we were considering earlier having a budget amendment to basically purchase a second Zoom license for all of our committees to share. Based on discussion with OANC, we're going to pull back from that and wait because they are in the process of negotiating a Zoom enterprise account. And I've connected with Director Bose to be like first in line basically to help them trial this out and figure out what limitations are. It might be we have one OANC enterprise account for the commission and then a committee enterprise account or a committee account that we have to pay for still, but that would basically make our expenditures a push, not a additional amount of money flowing out. So more of that as it develops. That has been the engagement for that committee.
Great. Public Safety and Health.
Public Safety and Health. Hello, everyone. So I'm Daniel Enterprise. I'm our chair for Public Safety and Health. Sorry, some updates for us is first just very thankful and grateful to all of the community advocates that came out on behalf of Air Quality Permit 7301 SM for Fort Myers. I know we've talked a ton about that. Thank you for passing the resolution. It was a really big joint effort, and it's just amazing how much advocacy can be swayed by community mobilization. So I just want to thank like all of the Eckington community partners, so the Civic Association, Eckington Park and Arts. I mean, there are just so many people to thank for like a 3-day turnaround, which Commissioner Galvin didn't even mention, but 3 days, we received 500 signatures on that petition and 300 unique comments from different neighbors. I mean, that's spectacular, and that's still ongoing. So they had to close the link for now, but that's going to continue on. But it's amazing what we could do when we're engaging and mobilizing a community. I want to reiterate again for everybody on the call and in the room that the comment period has been extended 1 week until March 25th. And what that means is submit your written testimony to Stephen Hours, who's at the Department of Energy and the Environment, and Commissioner Galvan will put that in the meeting minutes. So just send your written testimony. It can be any length long, and if you want a template for that to make it even easier, we have that on our Google Drive for the Public Safety and Health Committee. And if you want to learn more about how to testify in person or through written testimony, come to one of our meetings. Which is, I think, is a good segue to say we just rescheduled our March meeting. So thanking everybody for your flexibility on that. So our March meeting for the Committee on Public Safety and Health will now be next Thursday, March 28th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in a hybrid environment. So we'll have both Zoom option, or you can come to the Eckington Community room, which is at Judd and Wheeler, where we have it more normally in the Eckington section of our area. One of the big things we're working on as a committee is we're creating a big community engagement strategy collectively. And what I mean by the strategy is we want more people to be involved in our ANC. I think we're doing some really good work, and if we can continue the momentum, that would be great, but it's a capacity issue. And so we really need more people to get active and involved in what we're doing. So for that to happen, we're going to put together this strategy. We're really going to talk pretty extensively about it next week at our meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to bring something forward to all the commissioners to take a look at, to help us edit and iterate, so we can work on a really comprehensive strategy to make sure that this new commission is now known within our community, and we're doing good stuff, and they know how to tap into that stuff. Another thing we're working on is we have created a DC statehood resolution. Statehood is a major issue when it comes to public safety and really having our own agency over what we put out as a district. So it's very important that we show very adamant support for DC statehood, even at the localized government level. The statehood resolution is based off of the DC statehood pledge. I haven't had any sponsors or co-sponsors for this yet, but a recommendation that I would have is Commissioner Sani and Commissioner Anderson help to sponsor and or co-sponsor this, since you signed the pledge online. So it's the same language that you signed on to. So all you got to do is just say that I'm going to co-sponsor it or sponsor it, and I would love to have that. That would be great.
You got me.
You got me.
So that we can, so we can talk about that in April.
Sure.
We can go through that, but it's the same language online. Last things, we're going to be focusing on more resolutions in the future as well, because I think it's really good to have a starting spot for what we believe in as an ANC. So a few topics that are of prominent mind, and we're going to slowly chip away at them just so we don't have too much at once, is a resolution on substance use disorder, a resolution on alcohol's relationship to crime, a resolution on equity, on abortion access, on ghost guns and gun manufacturers, as well as access to firearms, and then a zero waste initiative as well. So we'll slowly be chipping away at that. We're not going to push that on everybody all at once. And then last but not least, I always provide a resource for the community that's front of mind. So I want to talk a little bit about rat abatement, since I now know way too much about it.
So excited.
For neighbors that are looking for good quality rat abatement strategies, especially since it's warmer weather out now. Step one is to fill out that 311 request online or on the app. So if you just type DC 311 into Google, it's the first link that you have there. Create a profile. It's worth the time and effort. It's actually a really good interface, I find, but you'll find rat abatement as one of the selection options toward the bottom, and then you just write a detailed report on it. So that's your first step. And then you get that ticket number for that and save the ticket number, because you'll use that later. Step two is if you have rat or vermin issues that are affecting a block or a major portion of your area, what you should do is fill out a petition for rat control services, which is located on DC Health's website, and just follow the instructions there. It provides detailed instructions. You're just going to be petitioning. So it's like door knocking. You're going to be asking neighbors to sign the petition. You're going to be asking for their addresses, and then there's instructions on how to submit it as well. I've notified the person that's on the back end of that submission platform, and they're fully on board with us, like, really digging into them to make sure that this actually occurs. So they're aware that we're planning out that type of outreach. And then last but not least is take that ticket number and CC your commissioner on messages with the DC Health Rodent and Vector Control Division, which is a part of the petition process. So CC commissioners on it, fill out the 311 request, do the petitioning. It's worth the time and effort, especially since we're heading into warmer weather. So that's my resource tip.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that thorough update. I think 2 things to add. We do have a committees section of our website, anc5f.com. So the folder that I think Mr. Aaron Price mentioned is linked there. So that's an easy access place to get it now. Thank you so much on that thorough update on rat abatement. It's my favorite topic, but it's so important. All right, excellent. Moving on. Also the other issues that you talked about, but I know that everyone's been rat vermin issues has been a big issue. So looking forward to more action on that. Great. The next committee update is, one moment, is TAPS. All right, Transportation and Public Space. Commissioner Sani.
Yeah, thank you for that. We had a good TAPS meeting this last cycle. We had a presentation from Mr. Mike Goodnow of DDOT to talk about their bicycle program. He's been with DDOT in that capacity for almost 20 years now and has seen many cycles of the policies and programs in DC. And the reason we had him here is bike lanes are obviously something the Transportation Committee will have to deal a lot with and push forward on as we get feedback from neighbors and requests and such. And so we wanted to get an idea of how to best work with them as an organization, what they look for, how we can provide detailed enough feedback to help like dovetail community feedback and engagement with the larger citywide infrastructure movements. Had really good question and answer session with the committee. Obviously, there were no plans or anything they're presenting. This was more of a general getting to know them because we are a new committee and new people within the DDOT rulemaking sphere. So that was the main thing. And then we also did draft 2 of the resolutions that were voted upon and passed in the consent agenda. So thank you for that. That's TAPS.
Great. Zoning and Development Committee, Mr. Stone.
Mr. Stone let me know he would not be able to make it today, so I will try to give a brief overview. So at the last meeting, we talked about the BZA case 2108, which is 2017 rear 2nd Street, and discussed the development, answered and Lona from there, or Lola, sorry, Lona, the applicant Lona Aliyah gave some of the background on why, just very similar background that she had given the commission last meeting. And then the Zoning and Development Committee voted to basically support that development and move it to the ANC for action.
Okay.
So that hasn't been nothing's been drafted for that, but given that it was already kind of discussed before, that may come at the next meeting.
Great, excellent. And this is to loop back, this is the case where I think the DC zoning committee has asked to delay their case. So they'll come to the ANC at a later point in the future. Yep. Task Force on Outreach, Commissioner Sani, any updates? Or no?
Oh, he actually provided at the beginning.
Yeah, so I think you're good, right? Great, excellent. Library Task Force, there will be a presentation next meeting. Commissioners?
No.
Oh, okay,
Excited
great.
about that.
Excellent, amazing. Item 11, we have a report from a presentation from the Enterprise Community Development. Commissioner Williams, could you remind us the presenter's name so that we can meet them?
Her name is Stacy Barenbach.
Perfect,
And
excellent.
she's from Enterprise Community Development.
Excellent. Ms. Barenbach, you should have received a request to unmute, and you're recognized.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Williams, for inviting us, and the rest of the commissioners for having us here. I'm actually joined with a few folks from my team, Karina Spencer, Joseph Adams, and Luke Patton, who are going to do the heavy lifting. Presenting, can they be admitted as well?
We are working on that right now.
Thank you. And while you do that, I'll tell you a bit about myself. I'm Stacy Berenbach. I'm a real estate affordable housing developer with Enterprise Community Development. We are a Mid-Atlantic based not-for-profit affordable housing developer with 114 communities serving over 25,000 residents, and are very active in Washington, D.C., including the work that we're doing at the Edgewood Commons campus, which we own and operate. And we have 2 projects under development right now, both of which need a new water line installed to serve a sprinkler system at one of the buildings, and then also to service the domestic water for our new construction being developed. And I will kick it off to Karina and Luke to talk about the projects, and then Joe will talk about the work that we're proposing to do in the public right of way. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. I am trying to get my camera, but it won't allow me, so apologies on that. So, and Luke or Joe, if you want to pull up the presentation, that would be a good time.
Yeah, and do
so-
we actually have
Thanks,
access to share just a quick presentation?
Yeah, so you'll need to let me know who to admit because we have to manage the privileges. So if you tell me who will be presenting, I can grant the privilege.
Luke Patton.
All right, he should have that privilege to present.
All right, and I'll go while that comes up. So the Edgewood Commons 611 Gardens project involves the renovation of 301 and 2-bedroom mixed income apartments with rents affordable to households ranging between 30 and 80% AMI. The locations are 401, 415, and 425 Edgewood Street, which are the 3 garden buildings on the northern edge of the campus along Edgewood and a little bit on 4th Street, and also 611 Edgewood, which is an 11-story building located in the center of the campus. So the renovation scope is mainly focused on important upgrades and replacements of major building systems to include upgrading the electrical distribution and capping gas service, which we know is super important. We're learning more and more how important it is. That helps to reduce improve indoor air quality, and also reducing the use of fossil fuels in general. Additional renovation scope includes HVAC and plumbing upgrades, new windows, appliances, and unit finishes so that the units can feel refreshed for the residents. The 611 building will also receive important life safety upgrades with the installation of a new sprinkler system. And as a result of that, we do need to upgrade the water service, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later. So this is a multi-phase renovation with residents temporarily displaced and relocated both within the building and also off-site. And so work started approximately 6 months ago. And the gardens buildings will be wrapping up shortly in another month or so, while the high-rise building will be completed early next year.
All right, thanks, Karina. And next, I'll present. My name is Luke Patton. I'm a development manager with Enterprise, and I am managing our Edgewood Commons 5 project, which is right next door to the 611 building. We'll put a map up here in a little bit so you can get a better sense of how everything relates to one another. And Edgewood Commons 5, we're very excited about. Construction on this new construction project just started at the tail end of 2023. It's expected to last about 2 years. And this will be the construction of a 9-story building made up of 150 new apartments. This is a senior building. income restricted for folks age 62 and over. Most of the units will be 1-bedroom units, but we have some studios and 1-bedrooms as well. And we have really gone out of our way to provide a number of amenities to improve quality of life for our residents, including, for example, providing a visitor unit for short-term stays by family and friends of residents. This will be a very green building. It will meet Enterprise Green Communities Plus. We'll have solar on the rooftop. And this building has very much was designed to provide universal design and really emphasize accessibility for our residents. As you can see on the slide, we will have deep income targeting. All units will be affordable. The majority of the units will be affordable for households earning up to 30% of the area median income. And the remainder will be for folks earning up to 50% of AMI. We'll have 106 units with project-based rental assistance, and 16 of those units will be set aside for permanent supportive housing units. This will be the first new construction on the Edgewood campus in nearly 50 years, so we're very excited about that. And additionally, we have envisioned for the ground floor space an adult daycare, in addition to about 12,000 square feet of amenity space. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague Joe to go next. And Joe, would you like to screen share?
Yeah, I'll probably have to get permission to share my screen. And let me hop off camera, or hop on camera, sorry about that. There you go. And should have permission. Okay, so as Karina mentioned, and Lou kind of iterated as well, a big part of our work is installing this new water line. So this water line is going to service the Edgewood 5 building. It'll make more sense when I share my the map afterwards, but I kind of just want to give you guys a high level view. Edgewood 5 building is here, and then this new water line will also serve Edgewood 611. Again, with Edgewood 611, we're upgrading the sprinkler, and then with Edgewood 5, you're having a full new building. So our proposal right now is a big portion of our work is occurring in the 4th Street public space area. We have already completed majority of the work that's happening on the campus. Now within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll start to make our way out to the 4th Street area. This work out here is roughly 5 to 6 weeks of work. The first 2 weeks was primarily just saw cutting and demoing. The next 2 to 4 weeks is excavating and installing the pipe. And then the last 5 to 6 weeks is backfilling and repaving the road per DDOT standard. So the biggest thing we're looking at right now, again, the 4th Street public space, highly occupied area, especially during the day. We're proposing to do this work at night via the permitting process with DDOT. DDOT requires us to maintain a certain level of noise. Obviously, I feel like a lot of people know about the DC noise ordinances. After 10 o'clock, you can't make any real construction noise, and a lot of our saw cutting, et cetera, needs to happen during the day. Let me pull this up. So this is a high level view just from Google Maps. So we're talking about this area right here off of 4th Street, which is where our community is at located. Again, during our process of doing the work, if allowed and approved through DDOT, would be occurring from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. And again, the majority of our work happening from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. would be the saw cutting and the excavation, which only happens the first 2 weeks. And after that, everything else tempers down throughout the whole process. Again, it's a 5 to 6 week process. We will have traffic control measures incorporated. And the goal is by doing this work at night, we're limiting the amount of disturbance through the area during high traffic during rush hour, and also everyone that is located around the campus.
Great.
So yeah, I'm just turning over to you guys if you guys have any questions that we could answer as far as the water line where it goes, or just general construction questions with Edgewood 5 and Edgewood 611 and Gardens.
I just wanted to do a quick time check. We do need to depart our physical venue by 9 p.m. And we had 10 minutes allotted for this agenda item. So I'll go to the folks in the room, but is it perhaps we could also follow up with questions via email if that works for you all?
Yes, that works.
Okay.
Drop it in the chat.
Great.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
So just with trash, if someone lives across from Edgewood, they do see a lot of trash that gets blown over from the trash can up front. So,
good evening, patrons. The time is now
my question is, what are we doing
8:55.
to manage the
Edgewood
trash
Recreation and
that's going out?
Fitness Center will be closing in approximately 5 minutes. Edgewood Recreation and Fitness Center will be closing in approximately 5 minutes.
Great. Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, my question is, as someone that lives across from Edgewood, I see a lot of trash get blown in my yard from those trash cans that are located right there that are overflowing. What are we doing to manage the additional trash that's going to result in more people over there?
So I can take that question. So the trash from the new building will actually, there's a trash room within the building where we'll have a trash room and a trash truck pick up the trash directly. There's a loading dock and a loading area right outside the building. So that will not be on Edgewood Street. That particular pickup is exclusively for the gardens that do not have trash access within the campus. That will not change. However, if there are, so we think things should not be blowing over at the same time. So I will note that for our operations team.
Any other quick questions from the room? Anyone online? Don't see any hands, but we'll make sure that we send along, thank you so much for the presentation. We'll make sure to send along your contact information and make sure that your presentation materials are available on our website in case there are any further questions from the community. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So,
I apologize. I see a hand from Galaxy A325G. I'll mute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. My name is Mike Clark. I'm the president of the Edgewood Civic Association. Before the people from Enterprise leave, I hope the ANC does not approve anything concerning this project, because at our last meeting, there was a loud outcry from the residents of 611 for what's happening in the renovation. I'm wondering what Enterprise is going to do about the flooding that's occurring in the people's apartments in 611, how wires are hanging from the ceiling, how people's property is being damaged, the increase in rats in the building, the backup of trash from the chutes that hasn't been picked up. So there's a lot of issues that the residents of 611 are having with this current construction that's going on. And I don't know if you've had a meeting with them. I would love to invite them to the Edgewood Civic Association meeting, which will be held on next Monday in building 635, because some of the residents are really complaining because the current reconstruction of 611 is not being done according to plan, floor by floor or side by side. They're just doing the whole building, trying to do the whole building at one time. So there's a lot of, I've even walked through and I've seen wires hanging from the ceiling. So there's some issues there that really need to be corrected. And as they do this construction on 4th Street, how many parking spaces they're looking to eliminate while they're doing this construction on 4th Street with the new water line, because those cars that are currently parking there, they're gonna end up in the community. So have you contacted Has Enterprise contacted any of those people who are living on the other side of 4th Street, how it's going to impact them as far as traffic and parking, even though the work is be done at night? But if you drive through that street right now, you see both sides of 4th Street are loaded with cars. So there's a lot of issues there that have to be brought forth to the community by Enterprise. So I would hope that they will be able to come to that meeting and express that to the community, because there is a large outcry from the members, the people who came to our meeting last month concerning what's happening in building 611.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Clark, can I, oh, I'm
Let
sorry.
me, Jennifer, let me just quickly answer Mr.
Yeah,
Clark.
absolutely, Commissioner Williams.
There is a meeting Wednesday, the 20th at 5:30 and 6:35, where all of this, I brought it to their attention, where we will be discussing. Please join us, Mr. Clark.
Okay, I'll join you. I'll see if I can make it there. But I think, before we sign off on anything, the ANC signs off on anything,
I'm not signing off on anything.
they
Because
need
we're
to
going to
really
have to
be.
address, they know I'm not signing anything until all those issues have been addressed.
Thank you.
No problem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for the presentation, and absolutely no action is being taken this evening. This was informational, and we encourage everyone to attend the follow-up meetings to discuss this issue further. I would like to turn to, are there any motions? No, we're gonna skip appointments committees. I'm gonna move a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Excellent. Any objections?
None.
Thank you so much for a productive meeting. We look forward to seeing everyone next month. On April, meeting details will be on our website along with all the details for the additional meetings. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.